I'm glad to be honored to be in the Embark, and I will talk about revolution in the air quality management, and I think you're going to be totally blown away because this has been going on for a long time, and during my also long experience from traveling around, and you already have my introduction here, and I will go directly to my disclosure. So I now have my own company, which I had for a long time actually, where I do help to optimize outcomes and also to design of clean rooms. I'm also the international scientific advisor, LIFE-Aire USA. I do also mentorship of upcoming ART companies that think outside the box and come up with brilliant ideas and new products. I'm also affiliated scientific director in different clinics, helping out to avoid problems within the clinic. So the learning objectives is to talk about the impact of the environment on the outcomes. We know that VOCs, volatile organic compounds, they are everywhere, and there are many, many different sources of them. We know, I want to show you the effects on the outcomes and how we got a scientific driven solution to the problem. And latest developments and findings, which I hope you will be very surprised about. The other learn objectives is to know that you need a clean, non-toxic environment. And why? Because we are there for help the patient and get them to the expectations of us. It's also very important for the staff and patient well-being. And of course, mostly the reputation of the clinic. And the COVID-19 has revealed many weak points in the clinics, how they behave, what they do, and what they promise. And if they can actually also show that they can do what they promise. So what do we do? What do we need? What do you see when you come into a clinic? A fantastic entrance and consultation rooms where they spent a lot of money on. You use the latest development in technology, and that's fine. But you promise 100% guarantee in pregnancy rate to get the patient in. And what do? You put back a lot of embryos to compensate for what you can't do or what you don't have, a clean environment. You also invest in safety for patient and gametes. That's also fantastic. But what plastics are you using? Are they actually embryo tested? And unfortunately, when you look into the plastics, they have not been tested for VOC. That can be sky high, even if they are embryo tested. So how does it affect your cultures? And how does it affect if you do studies? Do you actually study the background noise, the pollutions, plus whatever projects you're running? You need a solid foundation to stand on, because you need to prevent the exposure of the oocytes and embryos to the pollutants that are coming from the air, from outside, that you're actually taking in. But also within the clinic, how do you work? What dress codes do you have? Do you have a lot of people running around with, what shall we say, perfumes, mascaras, cosmetics? You're using a lot of ethanol. That's the worst you can use. So you actually reduce the chance of having a high quality embryo. And of course, it also shows in higher miscarriage rate. This is actually just a slide to show you that if you compare clean room, standard IVF, the clean room will have much higher results in the general population, but also in the severe male factor patients. The clean rooms give you higher pregnancy rates and lower miscarriage rates. The general IVF does not seem to require a traditional clean room, unfortunately, and or the ISO 5.6 environment. We usually focus on non-viable particulates and viable like biologicals, not at all on the VOCs. That is very important to minimize totally if you want to have good results. There have been coming nice written info on how it has happened that we are getting more and more interested in VOCs. It's very important that you control the VOCs because they also affect the embryo development. I'm coming back to that. And to optimize the blastocyst cultures. You can see here on the screen that you have from the 90s. And I remember already from the 90s when you built the first clinics, I was using charcoal in the ventilation system. And then later on, you got the calcium permanganate. But I will show you that that is not enough. So, as Dean stated, you're looking at air quality and it does impact your outcomes. However, it's not just getting away the particles, but you also should get away the VOC filtration, and then you get better outcomes. Also, the Cairo Consensus 2018 is a lot of writing about the VOCs. And you can see what I will concentrate also is Kathy Warlow and LIFE-Aire, what they have done and in a scientific way evaluated how the environment affects your outcomes. What kind of contaminations do we have? We have non-viable particles, and you have this classification according to ISO or EU GMP. But these non-viable particles, the small ones, can transport also other infection diseases or VOCs even. Viable particles, again EU GMP, they are biological, viral, microbes and fungals. And then we have the VOCs, that the most common one that you find in the lab is the ethanol, overuse of it, and very, very high concentrations that you don't think of, or when you have an IVF clinic where you also do operations for OB-GYN, and you fumigate the operation area with formaldehyde. And the number of VOCs that you have is horrendous. It's so many different ones. And for that case, you also need a different approach to the cleaning of the air. We have three sources, you can say, for the air in the lab. From the outside, that's the HVAC, which we have no control of. And if you have road and rooftop surfacing and disturbing soil, any kind of buildings, you have a lot of toxins in the air. Then the other thing is construction in general. All types of construction release a lot of, again, the VOCs. And the worst is actually the traffic. And we have seen now during the pandemic how air is cleaned up totally. And the worst city, I'm afraid to say, but that's Delhi, where I've been many, many times. And it's horrendous for the people that get sick and die from air pollution, and that government doesn't take action against it. The other source is from actually the HVAC system itself. And it's very important that you do proper cleaning, that you do service, which I found that many don't. And actually when you ask in clinics, and actually UK, Troop, I think his name, made an investigation. The ones that work in the IVF have no clue what ventilation system they're using and if it's serviced. The HVAC, this is just inside one of the many. If you have a problem with your ventilation system, you can actually be producing toxins that are transported inside your lab. So a very ineffective HEPA filtration would actually transport VOCs inside the lab, and you can also get stuck in the HEPA filtration sitting there and sending out VOCs. And there are so many different types they have seen coming from the ventilation system, and that will definitely reduce your pregnancy rate. The HVAC specific organisms are, like I said, the pathogens, viruses, bacteria, fungi. Allergens are produced by the bacteria and mold, and toxins also are produced, endotoxins, mycotoxins. So it's quite important that you have a clean environment. And finally, the recirculating air within the space they are protecting, that is in the laboratory, or if you have a lot of people running in and out, you have a door between the egg collection and the lab. That is a no-no, because that person will also spread a lot of diseases, spores, and particles. And it's also depending on how you built your clinic, the disposable you are using. And I also see that many are buying big bottles of media, and then you aliquot in disposables that have not been tested for VOCs, and then you spread the toxins around. And of course, excess use of detergents and the wrong detergents. But those that are spreading the most is actually the staff. And it depends on how you dress, you're following the dress code, and even how you, whatever you use for your skin, etc., etc. We also know from Anderson 97 that if you have a defect ventilation system together with what you have in the indoor, you actually will increase your VOCs. So again, the biggest polluter is actually the staff. If you don't have selected very, very bad equipment that is not suitable for IVF, or some also put in their equipment too early before they have fumed off the VOCs. I also hear this all the time, that we culture on the oil, we use tabletop incubators, we use time-lapse, so the VOCs can't enter. That is totally wrong thinking. You find them both in oil and in media. What controls the action of individual VOCs? Well, it depends on their solubility, the level of hydrophobicity, and vapor pressure. It takes milliseconds for them to get into the media oil. So if you mix highly clean, what shall we say, pipettes when you're making media, with those they are not suitable for, you have destroyed that whole cycle. Or if you have loft benches, class 2 benches that are not serviced. And one present in the oil, the VOCs will stay there, and they will be a threat to the gametes or the embryos. And in ASRM 2019, LIFE-Aire actually had a presentation there, or a poster, VOC compounds and their embryotoxicity. And it was shown that you have accumulating from the oil towards the culture media. And that's even worse if you have long-term culture like day 5 and time-lapse. It's not the time-lapse in itself that's the problem. That's your handling of the media. So what have we learned from cell culture is that if you have VOCs in the cultures, they disturb the membrane and it start leaking. You have increased cellular calcium that leads to cell death and other kind of injuries. The mitochondria are affected. and also the alignment of the chromosomes, the spindle formation are affected, and you have maybe spreading of the chromosomes. The founder of LIFE-Aire, Kathy Warlow, started this trip, or shall we say, evaluation of her lab a long time ago. And they were looking at the clinical pregnancy rate that was going down some times of the year. And they measured everything inside the lab, and they found out that it was something actually coming from the air. And during this measurement, they found out that it actually was coming from the air, and it was toluene from bacillus and aldehydes that affected their results. And so what could they do? They started to do science and trying to find what they can do. And from this, they found out that they had done a project that is so suitable for the IVF lab that other clinics also wanted to have it. And that's the start of LIFE-Aire. The LIFE-Aire ventilation system is, every data I've given you here has been tested by third-party independent testing, and it's Homeland Security Research Center. So if you look first in the source air that is contaminated with total VOCs, aldehydes, biological spores, particulates, and after a run through the ventilation system, you actually see that the VOCs are under detection limit and aldehydes are very low, almost at detection level, and the spores are below limits, and the particles, of course, are reduced. But also the thing is that the air IVF, LIFE-Aire, also kill or inactivates these bacteria, and I will come back to that in a later slides. But also the worst ever you can have is anthrax, and also biological warfare has been eliminated. So it's very effective. Sorry. So how do you go about to produce this kind of ventilation system? Well, you have to take in consideration that VOCs varies in their polarity, molecular weight, and biochemical structure. And therefore, it requires different mechanisms of removal. And it should target all kind of biochemical families. And that will, of course, increase the effectiveness. We see usually that the dinosaurs in the ventilation business say that they know everything, and I meet that all the time, and we know, so we shouldn't interfere with their design. In the early days, as I said, I was using carbon, and that was in the 90s. And this was only absorb non-polar high molecular weight VOCs. But when it's saturated, it starts releasing them again, which I will show you later on. The column permanganate will oxidize some of the polar low molecular weight VOCs. And that means that we have a lot of VOCs that can come in and accumulate and interfere with our cultures. The LIFE-Aire system technology is totally different. It removes all airborne chemicals and biologicals without producing any byproducts that other products actually do. And there's no intermediary molecules or ozone by a single passage. The LIFE-Aire system have been tested against many different ventilation systems and also by third-party testing, but the lecture is too short time for me to go into all the details. But you can also retrofit this into your existing ventilation system and get it installed, so there's no problem. The LIFE-Aire VOC-free ventilation system is FDA and CE certified. It consists of a drum and the pure air comes in, it is recirculated, so you gradually get cleaner and cleaner. And in the early days, when it was, I think this is from around 9 or 10 clinics, now it's 62 and increasing by the day. You can see that the viable particles and the total VOCs are quite high, and the pregnancy rate is 39. After the installation and the clearing, they go down under detection limits and they run up to 62. These are clinical pregnancy rate, not implantation rates. And this is just from 2016, also ASRM. It's 9 clinics, 5,000 non-donor patients and all ages. The blastocyst conversion rate goes high. Implantation rate is increasing. The clinical pregnancy rate or ongoing pregnancy rates are also increasing. And the miscarriages go down. Remember, these are 9 clinics, so it can vary between. We also have now the first European installation at King's College, King's Fertility. And again, exceptional results. So the clinician there, Dr. Saris, they went even on this COVID pandemic. They went up and said, how did we fix this treatments during the COVID? Well, they have now an air purification system that is beyond the EU requirements. But you should also know that the EU requirements, they have an annex now, and it's been there for 4 years discussion, and it will be implemented, and the clinics will have to have a higher control of their ventilation system and the air. And the staff is proud, and so are the patient, of course. They are very satisfied with the treatments, and you can see here again, there are quite almost 1,000 cycles in each. And you can see that the single embryo transfer has gone up because the quality of embryos, they dare to go down in the number of embryos they're putting back. The clinical pregnancy rate have increased, the implantation rates have increased, and the miscarriage rate gone down. But not only that, we have now a gas-inline filter that is the most advanced on the market, been tested against most of the filters. And again, we have this third-party testing, so the information should be correct. It has almost like a mini LIFE-Aire ventilation system inside. We have the ULPA and also the 4-step filtration that is managed in a certain way, in a certain design, so it's more effective. It's very broad in the uptake of the VOCs and prevent release from it. And of course, if they are very effective, the replacements per year is less. And this has been tested on the gas, medical gas quality that most clinics are using now. Could it become better? Well, this is, if you focus on this one, these are different programs, and they are testing it against, this is time lapse also. All the data is on time lapse. And what they have seen is that you get more blastocyst of high quality, and it varies between the clinics. And it's early days, and you can see that the number of stimulation cycles are varying. But we can also say that we have another ongoing study. We hope to do a sibling study, so we can compare exactly the same problems, but in the same patient. So what they say is actually that in multiple repeat patients that they have a lot of problems with getting a good embryos, they see that they have a better conversion and normal embryos, which are of course very important if you also have a PGD clinic. If you look to the right, this is just to show you the different filter types and then the gas-inline. And then it's quite important that this pillar here, it means that it's 100% working. It doesn't let anything go through, whereas it's actually 5 times more effective than the other filters that are on the market. And it varies between the different types of filters you're testing against. Again, superior quality.
Sorry to interrupt you, Dr. Larson. Already we are running out of time.
Okay, I have some few left here.
Please.
Okay.
We are running out. Yeah.
Yeah. The air IVF is also very potent in killing off the most diseases you have in the world of the hospitals. They've also done a study in a hospital where you can see that, and recently published, the number of stays is decreasing. The cost for the stay is decreasing. And I have another one here that you can see also the airborne and surface pathogens with the A is the LIFE-Aire drum. It almost disappears and they are extremely happy with it. So this is I think it's the last one. It kills all the airborne bacteria, fungal and viral pathogens, and that are responsible for the sickness and also hospital-acquired infection. Quicker recovery and less complications. And chemical and biological pathogens are below detection levels, but a single pass, but also at reduced air exchange rate. The length of stay is down by 40%. The improved capacity, and they can increase the intake of patient, and they have actually increased their income by $2.3 million US. And very important from my point of view, less sick staff. So what is your weakest link? And have you prepared yourself for the next pandemic? Thank you.